was really influential to how it like became what it was, and like inflated and deflated just its journey, was there was an emphasis on like there's no rules. You can kind of just say whatever you want and get away with it.
Yeah.
Which like there's a lot of people that that value that, and there's a lot of value in a space where you're safe to do that. But at the same time, when you have a platform that's so huge and has so much attention on it, it's really difficult to toe that line, because then people will take advantage of it. People that are uncouth, people that probably shouldn't be in the position where they can take advantage of that stuff. So there was like a lot of like hate, and there was like a lot of racism, and there was a lot of like just horribly offensive shit
Yeah.
that Newgrounds became known for, and that would proliferate on Newgrounds because it could. There wasn't anybody saying like this isn't appropriate. Everyone wants to talk about how like I was a top creator. Like literally by the ranking of Newgrounds, I was #1 for like over a year on the website in terms of like being a creator. I think it's like likes even like a creator or something.
Yeah.
But like I was tremendously and horribly bullied on that website, and it was encouraged by the culture of the website.
Yeah.
Like people would make collaboration cartoons that would take months, and there was like immense talent behind it and effort just to shit on one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, is that okay? I don't think so.
No.
As a 35-year-old man, I'm like, dude, if my child grew up on the internet and then a community of incredibly talented artists made something that's like 15 minutes long that took months to make about how terrible this one my kid is, I would be fucking livid. You know?
Of course.
And for somebody to experience that, which like I have, and it's incredibly damaging, and it's like it's not okay, and it's like, is that the world we want to live in? So talk about the fall of Newgrounds. Like I think the very nature of that, the vision of it was that there sort of is no vision, was kind of the problem, right? Because to say everyone's allowed, then the loudest, most aggressive people take over, and then dictate the rules of it, and people don't feel safe to be in an environment like that, or they have to adjust to be as like hard and offensive and whatever those to fit in, and then they have to start being meaner, and they have to start being like, well, it's okay that somebody's making fun of me because that's just the culture of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So,
and like, and I feel like that definitely, I guess, like propelled as well in my eyes when YouTube especially started to become really big in like the mid 2000s, and a lot of the Newgrounds animators moved from Newgrounds over to YouTube, and then they realized, oh shit, I can't get away with nearly as much stuff on this website that I could on Newgrounds, right? Because like Newgrounds, as you said, was very much like the Wild West of the internet, where it's like anything goes, you can say whatever the fuck you want, and most likely get away with it, just because that that community just like drove that kind of attitude, right? And it's like, because I remember like reading through like a lot of like Newgrounds comment sections and like forums and stuff like that, and my god, I've never seen something as toxic as like a 4chan b-board. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that's okay. It's not only was it okay to be mean, it was encouraged.
Yeah,
that was like part of the culture.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of shit for like talking like this about Newgrounds, and it's like there's a duality to it, man. Like I'm incredibly grateful for that platform and the people that I was involved with, and like how it elevated me and how it allowed me to fucking get to where I am, and like a lot of the people from Newgrounds in that era I still talk to and I love dearly. Tom Fulp, the creator of Newgrounds, is such a fucking dear person to me. But like you just have to, and I've had conversations with him about this. You can't ignore the toxicity that came out of it because of the nature of the website, you know. And that's not a place that I'm at in my life anymore. And it feels like there's this sense of it's like all or nothing, like fucking you're with them or you die. And it's like, no, I can acknowledge how awful a lot of things were about that experience, while also being grateful for everything that it gave me. It wasn't perfect. In a lot of ways, it was terrible, but also it was great to me in a lot of ways too. And I have no illusions about that. But that's just the kind of culture that breeds, and it's nobody's fault. It's just like you have to. It's gotten to the point where it's like so subversive and so underground that like you just have to be like, fucking it rules. Fuck you, because there's so much you can say where it's like, no, it doesn't rule. It's like you have to believe. Which whatever, it is what it is. I just don't. I have no interest in being a part of that culture for the most part anymore. Because I'm in a position now where it's not just like tens of thousands of people are watching my stuff now. It's like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have seen jokes that I've done and things that I've done, and like there's a responsibility that comes with that a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like, what do you want to put out into the world? If you're just like, well, fuck you, I'll say whatever I want. That's the world that we live in. It's like, okay, that's a way to think, but for me, with that amount of power that I have to influence people, I mean, they're literally called influencers. I want to do something better than just
you want to be a good influencer and not a bad influencer, right?
Well, a good influence, and not necessarily like a goody two shoes or something. Like obviously, I'm going to stay true to things that I find valuable.
Of course, yeah.
But if there's no reason to make like horribly offensive jokes just to make people laugh, I know, and I don't. People who do that, I'm not like, oh fuck you, It's like that's their choice. But my choice is not to do that, because I don't want. The last thing I want is, and there's no, it's not a secret like because I grew up in that environment, I grew up in Southern Florida. It wasn't a very progressive area, so like a lot of the language I used when I was a teenager was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's stuff I wouldn't say anymore. But like I've been on the internet for so long that there's like records of that growth.
Right.
So it's really easy to like sort of be like, hey, he said these things, they're terrible. When I don't feel that way anymore, or I wouldn't say those things anymore. So the thing that's important to me is I don't want. I mean, I'll just be fucking blunt about it because I've had drinks. I've said the N word in the past, like, a lot.
Yeah.
It's in some of my most popular cartoons. What I don't want is a 35-year-old man who like might have kids someday.
Yeah.
I don't want some like some young impressionable black kid to see somebody be like a Game Grumps fan and find that and feel like so betrayed. You know,
Yeah.
like that's terrible, and I don't want to do that to a kid. So like my goal in like moving on from that is to just be a better person to the world, because there's still so much. And there's so much you can say about like censorship and like self-censorship and pre-censorship and stuff. It's like, oh, I won't make those kinds of jokes. And it's like, okay, well then what's next? You know? And it's like, okay, there's arguments to be made there, but it's not like, you know, the jokes that I make on the show, like I'll go a little farther in person, but that's because I'm talking to people who I know they're not going to be offended by that.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like it's unfair when, you know, there were some clips from like old Dragon Ball recordings or whatever, where like they were making some spicy jokes or whatever, some pretty offensive jokes, and it's like, you see those jokes get posted on Twitter and people share them around and they're like, this is terrible. And it's like, yeah, but they weren't meant to, you know, like
No, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. It's like, no, I get what you mean. Yeah. No, I totally get what you mean. And I think like the biggest difference, especially with someone like you, who has been doing this ever since they were young, like very, very young, to now, you know, where basically the large majority of your life has been documented on the internet, right? Which means that, you know, not only, you know, your old mindset and, you know, the environment that you grew up in, both online and offline, was showing, you know, through old publications, but also, you know, you growing as a person. I mean, like, you know, you were mentioning about like old clips being like shared on Twitter and then you getting blasted about it, but like, I would argue that like you could fucking say anything on Twitter and people get blasted about it, right? It's like it's become almost like oversensitive in a sense where like, you know, it's almost like a nowadays on the internet, it's almost like no fun allowed. This is going to be the most boring party ever, where you can't be a little tongue in cheek, you can't be a little offhand with your comments, even if it's done in a clearly non-offensive, jokey way. And like, I don't know, that's like for someone like me, and I'm sure especially you as well, that's like it's very like claustrophobic. It's really like restrictive, right? It's like I can't say anything anymore, and it's so dumb because like, God forbid, people change over time. You know, it's like people think that like, oh yeah, just because you said some bad shit in the past, he's gonna do it again. You know, all these years later, it's like, no, people change for the better, more times than not, and you know, and it's like just people online, just unfortunately, a lot of them just don't understand that because they've never been in that situation where, again, like their entire life, or at least a large majority of their upbringing and them growing as a person and maturing, has been documented for basically the entire world to see and potentially criticize, right? And it's like, and I feel that's like, in your position, that's very unfair, that suddenly, you know, because you are put in this position, that you're just like, it's like free real estate to, you know, collectively come and shit on you, where it's like, well, no, you probably wouldn't be able to handle it either if you were in the same position, right? So what gives you the right to judge a person like that, you know?
People are never gonna understand that.
No, of course
that's something that I think, what's the saying? Like wisdom is knowledge plus experience. You know, it's you can pretend like you know a thing and how it works, but it's like unless you've lived it, you don't really know what the experience is like. So, but like saying that is already is going like too far in terms of like, well, you're a fucking YouTube, you know, you play video games for a living. What the fuck? So it's like you can't win that argument. And nor should you, because the thing that you said, the claustrophobic thing about how it's a little claustrophobic, there's so many like restrictions now. And
Yeah.
I agree to a certain extent, but it sort of made me realize more like, I like a challenge. Because if somebody's saying like you can't use these words anymore, then it's like, okay, I can be funny without those words. It's not a problem to me. You know, it's like you can't censor me. It's like I don't give a shit. Like, the only time that you can truly speak your mind without any judgment or opposition is if you're talking to a fucking wall. You know, the moment you introduce somebody to the equation, then you have to consider their feelings, and like, you know, it's like you can't just spout nonsense because you're gonna have a bad time and they're gonna have a bad time if you care about that, right? Like, humans have empathy. So the argument of like I should be able to say what I want, it's like, that's fucking bullshit, man. Like, you can say whatever you want if you're talking to yourself, but when there's other people involved, if you have empathy, have some fucking empathy. But the second thing I wanted to say about the claustrophobic thing is it's made me value more like my personal life, because I think a lot of people who do this line of work get a lot out of doing it, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but like when this is the source of everything that you get out of like communicating with people or like getting feedback or like energy from other people, like there might be an issue there because you can't really be yourself or feel a sense of acceptance